let me let me start by saying that this is Uday and Sony Live who thought I could do this. I had no idea. When they told me that, you should narrate your stories and all, I said, "मैं क्या कर लूँगा यार? I don't know." So somewhere I think they saw in my stories what I couldn't. For me, it was just a kind of a release. I was just expressing myself. And then, yes, you're right. Every story has an inspiration from life, from incidents, and that's what stories are, right? Yeah. Stories are what we narrate. When you go out of this press conference and talk about this press conference to someone, it becomes a story. So everything is a story. Our lives are stories.
So real to real, that's how it works out.
Well, I think in the days where people are saying that movie making is becoming very expensive, and I'm reading tweets and stuff about people saying that the industry is going to be costing a lot of money now to make a movie. I was like, hey, let's just tell a story on the web and make it as good as a movie. What the hell?
Yeah, hi Vikram. You've got a penchant for horror attachment towards most of the projects. So do you feel that most of these stories will have a horror element to it? And
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, the point number two is what actually attracts you to horror so much in life?
Actually, you'll be amazed that out of the 104 stories that we have earmarked for this year, 2 stories a week, Mondays and Thursdays, which makes it 52 weeks. You'll be surprised to know that there are only 12 horror stories. The others are like the one you saw right now, which is an emotional, I would say, if it was a film, it would come under drama. There are stories of love. There are mythological stories, my favorite, Krishna. There are, as a matter of fact, when I used to write on Facebook, it was called the Kanha stories, and my Kanha stories used to get the most amount of likes. So I love writing about Krishna, about Mahabharata, about our mythology. And then on the other side, I've written about parallel universes and quantum physics and what should happen if we meet ourselves 20 years from today. So there are stories of all kinds. It's like, I think I'm the new princess of Arabian Nights.
Yeah, Vicky. You in your career, you have discreetly done quite a few dubbing of your actors, and
Not so discreet, if you know.
in the sense, what I mean is, it's not publicly known. I mean, it's known to a section of the audience. Like, everybody may not know who did the dubbing of Raz, and some sections of the audience would know. So what I'm appreciating that you had done the dubbing so well, and you had mastered the art. So to what extent your proficiency in dubbing helps you narrate these stories in terms of voice modulation and the way you emote, pause as you're narrating?
See, I have had the good fortune of being an assistant director and that to the chief assistant director to 3 very big, very good directors. I was a chief assistant to Mukul Anand to start with, all the way to Agnipath, then with Shekhar Kapoor, then with Mahesh Bhatt. As an assistant, I have the opportunity to work with some of the greats. I have worked with, as an assistant, also directed Amitabh Bachchan and Mithun Chakrabarti and Dharmendra, and I've worked with Amir, and I've worked with a lot of actors, and I have directed a few, and I have learned from them. I've learned, I have actually stood in the corner as an assistant and seen someone like Amitabh Bachchan in Agnipath, he used to have his file open on a table. I remember there was a scene in which he was supposed to go completely crazy with Madhvi's character when his mother had insulted him. And we all broke for lunch. And there he was, just rehearsing and rehearsing and rehearsing. And it was a treat to watch, but also to learn. I always tell my assistants and people who work with me that this is the only place we get paid to learn. So I think first that learning has helped me a lot, and then secondly, I think, I like the stories I narrate. If it is a job, then it won't happen. If it's a passion, anybody can do it.
Hi. Sir, how do you plan to monetize the stories, and do you have any plans for that?
So Sony Live is an advertising platform where a lot of advertisers put their ads on the platform, and that's our way of monetizing. So we believe that the advertising that will show around the show will pay for this.
Okay, and do you think it's a big challenge on digital to get revenue since it is new, and how do you see that?
So I think the newness allows us to do new things. The newness allows us to experiment with platforms or experiment with formats. And I think that's the way we are addressing it. We are an organization which is investing in this entire medium and the content behind it. We see this as a long-term play for us. We will be able to monetize it. We will be able to put ads around it. And therefore, over a period of time, we will recover our money. So that's our agenda. We see this as a long-term content play in the digital space. As more and more telecom companies invest in the infrastructure, we believe this ecosystem will grow.
Vikram sir, any plan, did you think of converting any of the short stories into a film? Or because they were not being able to convert it into film, that you decided to make them a short story?
Look, let's be really honest about this situation. Films are going through a really bad time in trying to make it to the screen. If you get a star and a studio to back your idea, then you'll run into some censor trouble. You'll run into, you can't say this word, you can't say that word. And if you go through censor, you might just have, upset some political group or someone else, and they will throw stones at your theater and stop it. I think it's a stranglehold on storytellers. For too long, I think films have been a whipping horse. I mean, if you want to make a statement against smoking, then you first put a disclaimer on, on a film. Smoking is injurious, but you will not stop the pan shop. India is the only country where you get loose cigarettes. As a matter of fact, I remember I was smoking when I was very little, and I went abroad, and I asked the guy if he could give me 2 cigarettes, and he looked at me like I was mad, because there you can only a packet. So it's the only place in the world where you get that. You won't stop that. There'll still be horse carts on Juhu Beach and guys flagging the poor horse. But for us, even if it's computer graphics, we have to give them, okay, we did this with computer graphics. So we've become a whipping horse. And in that climate, Sony Live and what we're doing comes as a breath of fresh air for anyone who wants to do something creative.
Bhatt sir.
अब खुद ही कहानियां बोल के अपने आप को ही स्टार बना देता हूँ. बहुत हो गया नाच गाना.
Vikram, what is the logic of having English subtitles for this when you are speaking in English?
See, what happens is that it's called transcripting, and throughout the world it has been noticed that a lot of people follow things easier if you have a transcript. Another thing is that, see, the broadcast quality is something that we can only maintain to a certain point. Correct me if I'm wrong, so that's your area. But, everybody is not going to watch it on HD. Yeah. We'll be beaming on HD, but, someone is watching it on 240p, 480p, 720p, as however they get the network. So if someone is not getting proper network, then at least if there's a word that he misses, he can read. So that way you don't disconnect from the story.
It's also